everyone will tell you believe in yourself, but like, just do it. There's nothing wrong with failure, stuffing it up. That's all part of the process. Life's like a recipe, like you make it, you might miss something here, you might miss something there. But the more times that you make it, the better you get at it.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Today's guest is a legend with a unique, rare, and fascinating story. I admire Adriano's passion for the craft, honesty, his reflections, and overall love of what he does. It is amazing and inspiring to hear, especially about his drive and desire to create something great. We cover a lot in this chat, and it's awesome. Adriano's very easy to talk to with the laid-back style, and his learnings are brilliant to hear. This chat was a lot of fun. I took a lot out of it, and I think you will too. Adriano Zumbo is a chef and TV presenter. He's one of Australia's most celebrated pâtissiers and the star of the Netflix TV shows Zumbo's Just Desserts and Sugar Rush. A popular figure in the pastry world, Adriano has garnered many nicknames including the Sweet Assassin, Pâtissier of Pain, Dark Lord of the Pastry Kitchen, and has been lauded as Australia's answer to Willy Wonka. He's a regular guest judge on MasterChef Australia, and he's appeared on Dessert Masters on Network 10. The country boy's first taste of the sweet life was raiding the lollies and cake mix from his parents' Coonamble supermarket. Adriano began his apprenticeship at the age of 15, where his love affair with pastry flourished. An appearance on the first series of MasterChef Australia was instrumental in introducing the croquembouche to an even wider audience and made Adriano and macarons a household name. He has released 3 best-selling cookbooks and has competed in several prominent international competitions, including Coupe du Monde and the Asian Pastry Cup. It is, however, his love affair with confectionery combined with his Parisian training at top institutes. Adriano is also a favourite on the international event circuit, travelling to India, Indonesia, Mexico, South America, and Malaysia, demonstrating his sweet skills to an audience of devotees. Creativity is evident in every layer of Adriano's elaborate desserts. Constantly evolving and always considering his next move, cake, or idea, his infectious energy keeps fans on their toes. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about creativity and food, loss of his businesses and the toll it took, his love of creating, crazy macaron flavors, stress and cooking, getting on TV and MasterChef, tailored needs of the school system, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. You're known as many things, but you're also known as one of the guys that brought macarons on the map in Australia. Can you tell me, is it macarons or macaroons?
Macarons, yeah.
Macarons, okay, I got that right. But can you tell me about the toothpaste flavor? This has blown my mind. You created toothpaste flavored macarons. Tell me.
Oh, yeah. Look, toothpaste flavored macarons. We used to have a day called Macaron Day, which is still globally it still happens around, and it has been no one from Australia was really doing it, so we jumped on board and wanted to join that sort of celebration of something that we all love to make. So, but toothpaste came from that day. On that day we do like 50 flavors of macarons. We empty the stores out, no cakes, no nothing, and we used to just fill it up with 50 flavors of macarons, and maybe 20% of them were like wacky, maybe more than that actually, probably about 40% were like kind of wacky flavors. And the toothpaste one, it was just one that popped in the mix because of its minty freshness, and it was a good challenge. and it was sort of something that popped up in a discussion in the kitchen, and like toothpaste, and like, oh yeah, toothpaste. Let's do toothpaste. It makes sense, it's minty. It's a edible flavor, so why not? And so that's how those sort of wacky things came to life. It was pretty insane. We have a lot of fun doing it all, and it's pretty endless what you can come up with.
I'm glad you found that fun. How does a conversation? I've got some of the other flavors, which make way more sense. But how does still like toothpaste? Like you always hear about a kid that eats toothpaste at school, but you never think to actually have it as a flavor. Was it like a joke, and then you're like, okay, maybe this could actually be a nice flavor? Do many people buy this? Like, tell me more.
Oh, look, people buy it. It's on that day people want an experience, and they
true.
understand that it's only there for that day. We don't make it again.
Yep.
So people will just buy one of everything, or they'll get a whole bunch of the weird ones, and sometimes it's more of a thing to take it to their friend's house or their family, and have a bit of a laugh as well, because they won't tell them what the flavors are, and people are eating them. So it's kind of like a little bit of a, I don't know. I found like it was kind of a connection point as well.
It's a lot of fun.
Exactly, have a lot of fun with friends or family or somebody you want to have some little different experience with.
I like that, and I want to get into your mind. There's this TV show, I can't remember the name of it, it kills me, but it's one of the funniest shows. The guy was doing like fake PR for a business, like a Yochi frozen yogurt, and he was trying to get everyone through the door with poo flavored frozen yogurt. And people would come and then eat it. Like, no, it actually tastes like this. It's like, yeah, that's the whole point. So it's crazy what you can come up with.
Oh my god!
You mentioned
crazy.
the challenge side. Was that like a thrill to be able to see someone enjoy some of these weird flavors? I know that there was pig's blood, hamburger, duck pancakes, fried chicken. There's probably a lot more. Is it like a challenge? Does it excite you to make some of these flavors, delicious?
Oh, it was always exciting because exactly what you just said, making that delicious in a sweet form and also in a macaron. It's never really been. Oh well, it's never been done. So it was always a challenge for us to come up with it, like not just making it a gimmick, but like when you ate it, you go, oh yeah, that's like a duck pan. That's like a duck pan. The pig's blood one was a bit more experimental. Where my family's from in southern Italy, they have a pudding called sanguinaccio, which is pig's blood and chocolate with spice, and then that's what we made it. We based it on that. Yeah. It was based on that kind of pudding. It's a very traditional thing in Calabria, and and look, once people ate it, or if you didn't tell them, they loved it. It's like it's just so rich and creamy and salty and chocolate, and it all really goes well together. But all good fun. I think it's great when you can make something that's in your head a reality, and then eat it and go, wow, that was awesome. So and you also go through as you have it every year, you sort of go through flavor profiles and go, well, we did that last year. So we'll always have a core that are kind of like key flavors that you kind of got to have, and they make up a big percentage of it for the people who aren't that experimental, or experiential, and then there's always that little chunk where you just keep flipping it every year, trying to like do something different, and going through what you can actually achieve, and that's what kind of where those flavors developed out of, and sitting around a stainless steel bench in a kitchen or at home sometimes, it's just banging out ideas.
I love that. And you mentioned, it's rewarding and the challenge behind it. Do you ever get overwhelmed? Because I think I heard that you churned out like 8 to 10,000 of these a day. Do you ever get overwhelmed, or is the thrill and the excitement of getting something out that's not only getting it out, but also, making it good, as I said? Does that ever come to play?
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course you get overwhelmed all the time. Depends what's on your plate, like, the 8 to 10,000, that was just the normal macaron flavors for the stores on a thing. They're just all those key, like when we had 10 flavors at that time, and they're those ones. But the ones for the day, we only make like 800 to 1,000. Like, so we call it one batch. So
that's
it's one batch. That's one batch through the process is roughly, when we did a batch, it was 1,000. So that's how we sort of connect. Like when we would go into production, it'd be like, oh yeah, let's do one batch or half a batch. Sometimes if it was some of those really like out there flavors, we might only do half a batch, because we were like, well, most people probably won't buy it, but there'll definitely be a great a good following of the diehard sort of people who will buy it. So, we only make a smaller bit of that. But yeah, it's definitely, it's an overwhelming job when you've got a business and in food and pastry and many products and many different your day can get very overwhelming. And then if something goes wrong in a 8 to 10,000 macaron production at the time, it's pretty stressful.
But it would blow my mind when you're churning out something like that, and then small things can go wrong, but then you have to sell this amount. I don't know how you do it. It genuinely blows my mind. And
then the wastage, something like if you stuff up a batch, it's gone. It goes 1,000 max. Because if something's wrong from the start, from the batter stage, or anywhere along the way, it's most probably that all of them are going to go. There's not going to be 10. Odd occasions, sometimes it might be an oven issue or something else, but and maybe you lose 10, 50, 20 shells or whatever. But yeah, if something from the start, then everything is gone, and then it's then you're just trying to figure out what to do with this waste. So it's
No, sorry.
That's all right. It's stressful. That's all I'm saying.
I can only imagine. How do you remain sane? And we'll talk about different businesses you've done and different ideas, but this seems like the most stressful job because it's live. With most people's jobs, yes, there's obviously stresses, but sometimes you got a little bit more time. Here you're live on the spot straight away. You have to make a decision. I know you started when you were 15. We'll talk about how you got into this, but do you now can you slow down time like the Matrix and go, okay, this didn't work, I can do this and shift things? Does it get easier, or it's still always a challenge?
It's always a challenge because as time goes by, you're setting yourself new goals and tasks, and whether it's you're opening another store or you're changing products, it's always a challenge. So you're trying to be more efficient. You're trying, all these different things come into play. So it's a never-ending cycle of craziness, and it's it's full on.
I can imagine. And also back to the macarons. Isn't it kind of crazy? You've done a few things, and please correct my pronunciation because I can't pronounce half of these, but is it the what's it called?
Croquembouche.
Croquembouche. You've also brought that. I think you did the VA cakes. Did you ever think when you were first starting out that you'd be known for all these crazy desserts? Was that the goal starting up? What were you thinking when you were 15 and you moved to Sydney?
Well, 15 moved to Sydney, it was more about just getting that break, getting away. I think at that age, you kind of so many things going through your head. You're playing lots of sports. You want to be free and all these things. So it was kind of I wasn't really focused at school. I wasn't enjoying it. And then I kind of wanted to do something that, gave myself a bit of purpose. And that was, I got an apprenticeship, and it all started there, but when you're an apprenticeship, you're having to listen and learn off people, which is what makes you who you are, as well as yourself, pushing yourself and learning new things outside of that. So it all is part of the development process to get you somewhere. And
most people
it was great.
Most people aren't like that. Most people, they do a job, and yes, there might be moments where they want to grow and learn, but throughout your career, and we'll get into it, you've constantly tried to push the envelope and constantly grow, constantly evolve. That is a very small percentage of the world that want to be like that. You could just want to work for money and that's it. But it seems like you've got strong passion, but also on top of that, the desire to grow and learn, very rare. Do you have good mentors? Have you always been built like this? Where did that aspect come from?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of different kind of stages of mentors along the way, in a sense, but not direct mentor where I went up to and said, "Oh, can you be my mentor?" I think I've just taken a bit of discipline and inspiration from them. I started with my parents. They had a supermarket. They made me work every day after school. Kind of instilled that, work hard. And I was doing that and playing sports. So I was they didn't want me to play sports because they wanted me to work more, but I was getting the balance that I needed. And also playing sports, you learn about, discipline and training and working hard. So all those things kind of come into play, and then you just keep chasing that sort of, I don't know what the word is, to be honest, but you're always wanting to be better and improve and try and achieve something.
I love that. I said it before, but not many people are wired like that, and that's why I'm so excited to talk to you, because it's a trait. It's like this brilliance trait. Like, I find it very contagious in the sense. So when you're 15, you're in a country town in New South Wales. You say
Yeah.
goodbye to your family, and you move to Sydney with your older sister. You're 15. Can you just explain it? You're just like, this is, I don't like this. School's not for everyone. I'm a big advocate of finding your joy, but you found it at 15, which is crazy. So you say goodbye to your family and your friends and just start at 15 years old. That's wild to
Yep.
me.
Yeah, it was pretty
Explain
wild.
that.
Yeah, it was a quick moment. I went to Sydney for a school formal of a friend who used to be in my class. Who went to boarding school, and I partnered one of her friends. And then while I was there, I looked in the paper, found a job, asked my sister, and then she said, gotta go. Obviously, mum says it's fine. It's all good. And that's kind of where it started. I went back, told my parents, and I just said, well, and I think they kind of took it as I'd go away for a bit and then come back and take over the business and stuff. But, 6 months in, I loved it. I knew, like, 6 months in, I said to myself, this is awesome. I'm going to keep driving, and just loved it. Yeah, just the creativity. You never stop learning. Just for being with a bunch of people that, I don't know what the word is. It's not odd, but, sort of,
Your tribe or your
you know,
people or.
yeah, it's like a tribe. No one really had a great education. Not because they couldn't. It's just they were like, they'd all fallen into this different pathway of like, well, like from experience now, I say there's two people: there's academics and there's hands-on people. Someone who'll do a trade or a
Definitely.
creative direction, or they're going to go academic and they're going to read a book. They're going to become super smart, get one of those top. They're going to be a lawyer, accountant, a doctor, all those kind of people. So I think there's sort of like two directions that you figure out when you're in school which way you want to go. Now that can develop into many different things, over time with different hobbies and different pathways and whatnot. But I think when you're at that age, it's sort of where you got to look at and go, okay, well, I want to go to uni and become this, or I'm going to go and get an apprenticeship, or I'm going to go work for an art school foundation or something, whatever it is, or get my own little studio and do something myself. So, I really see that. And for me, I didn't know it thinking like this, but when I did it, I took the pathway of doing something hands-on because I really enjoyed how much focus it gave me. At school, I struggled to focus because I'd read 2 or 3 pages of a book and I'd forget it. And then I'd be like frustrated in my head, and then I'd be looking at the person next to me going, like, what was that? All day I'd be frustrated about not knowing whatever, and I wasn't, and because it just didn't interest me. I was like,
Exactly.
what do I care about? What do I care about this mockingbird person or whoever? You know what I mean? Like all these things, and I was just like, yeah. So you go, sorry.
No, I was just going to say I agree with you. The school model, I love talking about how the school model, it doesn't fit even that many people. You very much are put in a box, and then if you're not in the box, I had this as well. I don't know if you had this, where if you're not excelling, then you're not seen as like dumb, and you potentially growing up, you think you're dumb because you don't fit in that one area. But there doesn't really foster creativity, different ways of learning. There's so many, and I'm not against schools whatsoever, but I'm saying that we need to have different ways to teach different kids. And then sometimes if a kid's not interested, we're like, oh, they've got ADHD or they've got this. But most people aren't interested in all of this. And most of the stuff we learn from school, we don't actually apply in our later life. And I went the model. I became an accountant. And I think that gives me more credibility because I think it was so stupid. I went to a Montessori type school before that, and I liked the hands-on component. Then you go to a mainstream school, and it like blows my mind how we're not applying any of that stuff. But also,
I agree with what you just said.
Yeah, and also back to what you said, I think everyone does have creativity in them. We just sometimes suppress it as well. But it's crazy. Did you ever feel like, I know that as I said, I used to feel like I wasn't that smart because I wasn't excelling at times. Did you ever feel like there was something wrong with you? And yeah.
I hated. That's why I hated school, because I was always, you got to try harder. He's got it in him, but he just doesn't want to apply himself. Yep. And I'm just like, I'm not going to apply myself because it's so boring. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not. You're not connecting with me. I'm not connecting with what you're trying to tell me. And that's for me what school was. It wasn't that I wasn't good at things. It was just the way, like, for example, maths. I was great at maths. I worked in the supermarket checkout every day, so I knew
that's the real maths.
how to. Yeah. That's the real maths. But once I went up to advanced maths because I was topping intermediate, I was at the bottom because algebra. I don't. What are letters and these things equals this and this is that went over my head. I'm still like, you don't do that on a checkout. You know what I mean? So that was where I was, and so things like that. I was really good at geography because I used to play a game called Carmen. Where in the world is Carmen San Diego? It used to be on the school computers, and in commerce class, I would play this game, and I traveled the world looking for Carmen San Diego. So I learned about every capital city. I was very fortunate to travel to Italy every year with my parents, going back to visit the relatives. So I had a little bit of understanding of the world and travel and so forth. And so I did okay at that, but they're the only things I did okay at. Failed English, failed science, all those things. It's pretty funny when you look back at it, I think it's people put me on stage when I'm on stage. Oh, you're like a scientific. I'm like, dude, I failed science at school. I'm not scientific. I just said like I've found a way to be interested in it without having to do all the crap. Like that doesn't interest me in a sense because there's different ways of science. It's not just the Bunsen burner and a beaker. So yeah, it's interesting. Exactly what you said. It's everyone's different how they got to be taught and being able to understand what kids want, to learn and interest them. I think that's a big thing rather than saying like, no, you've got to go and sit in that class and learn this because why?
Yeah, we are 100% on the same page. But I also find it remarkable. Actually, back to what you're saying, I learned a lot about history, or not real history, or potentially it depends who you speak to. But I learned about Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Norse mythology through like Age of Empires and Age of Mythology. And then through that, I was so interested, I then learned and taught myself. And it's like going back to the game thing, I found something I was really interested in and I didn't like, learning that at school. But then I found a way to learn and, grew and crazy. But anyway, back to when you're 15, did you have a knowing that this is what you wanted to do? Or was it more, I want to get out of here and this is something that, potentially interests me?
Exactly. The second one, it was something that, I just want to I just want to get away for a bit. And, it's potentially something that I want to do. I used to do in my sister's supermarket back in Coonamble, I used to work in the in-store bakery, but most things are like par baked or frozen, and you sort of decorate it or finish it or bake it off. So I worked in there because I had to work after school, and I ended up in there because I really enjoyed that. So that was kind of like the starting thing. I made a chocolate cake for one of my teachers once. I took it into class. Oh, cool. And he just said, "Oh, you got to keep making this." And there was that spark at a moment. He made me feel good.
Yeah, that's a good teacher there. Yeah.
Every time I get a teacher would be like sending me out of class or telling me to whatever, and then that after that I went to myself, I'm really enjoying this. And over a little bit of time after that, I went, maybe I'm going to give it a crack. So, and that's how it started. It was a risk and I didn't know what was going to happen. But like I said, 6 months in and I was like, this is awesome. I was staying back after work every day on my own account. No one was telling me to stay back, but I wanted to like play around with icing and learn and do different like cool stuff. And I had a lot of fun.
That's crazy because, with all jobs, there's highs and lows, and most of us, we would just want to clock out when we're done. But you had that, and also at such a young age, that maturity to kind of play around. And obviously that's helped you trial and try new things. So would you just stay back and say, like, can I use the equipment and stuff? And they're like, do whatever you want. Oh,
and nice. I had a really good boss, Sam Campese. He was an amazing boss for me to start, taught me a lot of things, told me, you work hard, you can be this chef and earn $800 a week. But this is back then. This is like 97.
Yeah.
So, that was a lot back, like that's a big wage in our industry back then. So, and or you can get paid minimum, you know what I mean? So he's always drumming in my head, you put your head down, let's go. And then there was a couple of guys in decorating that were awesome guys, really great mentors in the sense of, they had fun. They made it fun, and they're really talented at what they did. So, I think the environment plays a big part in what you do and the people around you, especially when you're that young and you're getting into something.
Very impressionable.
I'm 700 kilometers from home. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great because that sounds like it set you up. Obviously, it set you up, but having the environment where you could associate play and fun as well. Because sometimes when we start, I've got a few friends who've done different apprenticeships. It's all about working hard, which is great, but you still need to have room for play and fun. And you're also in a very creative field as well. And I like that they allowed you to, explore that. Because imagine if they just said, nah, just do it. There's no play, there's no fun. It would have taken away the joy. And that's not why yeah.
And that's what happens in a lot of these bigger kind of jobs, that people go into apprenticeships in cooking or pastry, and you can't stay back and do stuff, or you're not allowed. There's rules and regulations, and so it's a great thing if you can find it, because it's not easy to find.
I'm glad that you found that. I also want to give credit to your sister. You're 15. You probably don't know many people, and she's driving you at like midnight or 3 a.m. in the morning to take you to shifts. That is a good sister. I ain't doing that for my brother.
Very good sister. Yeah,
there's no way.
She did a lot for me. Yeah, like I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without my sister. At 15. So, my mum wouldn't have let me leave home if she didn't live in Sydney either. So
true. Yeah. Well, you had that support. How much older is she than you? Was she like
12 years old? She's 12 years older than me.
Okay. And was she like the parental figure? Like, did you?
Yeah, she's the oldest sister. Like, more the parental sort of. Yeah.
And how quickly did you? So you got in an environment. Most 15-year-olds. I was an idiot 15-year-old. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Were you able to have like a 15-year-old life? Like, were you able to go out and do 15-year-old things, or did you quickly mature and?
Well, I've always been a bit like chill. Like I went out with the guys from work. Once a week they play golf on Wednesdays, and
nice.
And after work, and then on some weekends, some of the guys would take me somewhere or catch up in the city or whatnot. So it was good. Out of that, I didn't really know anyone, and I wasn't. Yeah. I've never been that sort of outgoing person to go and find people or have to chat to someone. I'll just put my head down and learn something or play like something that I'm interested in. Maybe I'd play some sort of PlayStation or something. But work was pretty busy. It took up a lot of my my week, and then I have a couple of days off, and then on those days off I'd be pretty chill.
Oh, nice. So it still blows my mind, but we'll see if there's anything that springs to mind. So you do that, and then I believe you get a second apprenticeship, and you do that for 5 years. I believe we can get the timeline a bit. I'm a bit confused about the timeline, but you get potentially a second apprenticeship, and you work for 5 years, and then you get the head role. Am I getting this correct?
Oh no, I did one apprenticeship, but I moved a few jobs.
Yeah.
And then the one I stayed there for 5 years was my last year apprenticeship. And I stayed there for 5, and then my boss left. My boss left in the first year I was there.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
And then there's only a small team. It was only me and him and another part-time person doing pastry. It was a bakery, so mainly did bread, sourdough breads and stuff. And then and then I got asked to cover for a couple of weeks, and then didn't find anyone, and I just kind of fell into the role, which was amazing. Like when you look back at it, great opportunity at 19 to.
That's right.
To run this small pastry kitchen and learn and kind of have to come up with creatives yourself, which was, completely new to me in a sense of actually putting it out into a shop. Like I'd played around after work and stuff, and you make many different cakes along the way, but then having to be responsible for that, it was just a different role. So I took that on board, and I loved it. I worked hard. I did what I had to do, and did big days because I wanted to. I wanted to make good stuff that went out in the cabinet and people enjoyed. So, and I was developing my skills along the way, learning about new flavors and textures and recipes, and searching and buying books and trying to do classes. And you're forever learning and pushing yourself because you want to you want to achieve and want people to go, well, that's great. It's nothing better than someone eating something and in this job and going, that's amazing. Oh, what is it? Oh, I'm going to buy another one. And that's what you ultimately cook for in the end, right? You make a product, someone's got to eat it. And you're not going to eat it because you eat everything. You'd be
Were you strict with boundaries with that? Were you like, no, I can't eat anymore? Or
not when I was like in that age. I wasn't. I am now. Like in the last probably 10 years, I've been a lot more strict where I just taste. I want to eat the whole thing. Back then, I'd just smash the whole thing. I mean, I used to eat a creme brulee for breakfast. You get to work at 3 a.m. and you're so hungry.
Oh,
And
yeah.
in the fridge, the only thing that's kind of in the fridge you'd find would be fruit or creme brulee, and you'd be just like, oh, I want the creme brulee. So you just get a spoon, you sit in the fridge and eat it. So no one would see you, and then get rid of the little foil cup and then go back to work. Yeah.
Oh,
I ate so many creme brulees when I was young. Yeah.
I'm jealous. I couldn't do that anymore.
Okay. Yeah, I can't do that now.
No. Oh, and I know I said this. I'm going to say this many times. I'm sure you've met so many different chefs, pastry chefs, whatever, everyone in the field that, doesn't have the same passion and enthusiasm as you. But the fact that you get joy when someone enjoys your food, have you found that more people are wired like you or not wired like you and it's just purely a job?
Oh, look, there's both. You'll meet people, it's just a job. They probably lack a bit of confidence as well in the sense of believing in themselves. Sometimes you meet people who's like, oh, I couldn't, I don't think I could do that, sort of like that. So they just kind of coming to the job, following the recipe, doing what you tell, and going home. But then there's the ones that, they've got a dream, they're chasing, they've got a bit of an ego and they want to chase something. They really want to do something with themselves and learn more and, get that little bit of drive in them. Yeah, it's definitely those people. And then it's probably that top line person that's kind of senses it, just really into what they do. They really, buy research pieces and learn and travel. And I've worked in various places that have taught them a lot of great skills and techniques. And then they build that sort of sense, that inner sense when you're cooking, kind of can roughly gauge, that's right. This is, that flavor. I just need to adapt this, change that. Yeah. So I think there's different levels in the kitchen and pastry. Yeah, pastry usually has a lot more. It's a smaller section, so I find that those kind of driven, passionate people, there's a lot more of them because it's a smaller section, so you won't see as much of the fluff. Yeah. If you go to kind of a bigger place, you'll always get a lot of fluff because sometimes positions are filled by overseas students or whatever who don't really have a big interest in it. It's kind of more coming over here, that's the job that they take because there's a skill shortage or whatnot.
I heard about this.
You can get a visa. It's definitely a mix. Some of them are legit and then they're full on, and some of them, and they're great workers. Don't get me wrong, but they don't have that passion. They don't go home and start. They'll go home and do whatever they like to do, and tomorrow they'll just wake up, come to work, switch off, go home. All those kind of things, and you see them over time, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses like anybody. But yeah.
And I'm sure when you're working with them, as long as they're willing to do the work, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure you prefer the inspired ones.
It's all about attitude. As long as they turn up with a smile and they're keen to do it, that's all that really matters in the kitchen. Yeah. It's, if there's a good head chef in place, then that's the leader, and everyone, he'll need a good assistant that sort of, he delegates down to and controls most of the rest of the team, and they've all just got to, have a good attitude. Have a can do attitude, no worries, got it done. Doesn't matter if they go home and they don't have any interest in pastry once they get home, especially in the workplace. It's just, as long as they've got the skill to do the job and consistently and put up what's needed for that business or hotel or restaurant or whatever it is. So I think it's but then it's the people who want to grow and create and stuff, then they have to definitely have a deep interest.
I would imagine. And you mentioned that, the ones that are inspired, they're chasing something. When you got that head roll at 19, which is already crazy, what were you chasing at that stage? Did you have these higher ambitions to do all the things that we've seen now? What was going on, if you can remember?
Yeah, I did. I was doing some different stuff, whatever I could learn. At that time, I was really dedicated to learning how to make macarons. That was my goal. No one was really teaching it here. There's probably maybe one or two bakeries that were making them in a small amount. And the quality of them wasn't good because no one was really buying them. They were old and stale. So
That sounds
like
horrible.
but and that leaves a bad remark on whoever buys it, because if
Yeah,
it's been sitting there for a week and you eat a macaron and it's dried out,
bad for the
there's
brand.
nothing worse. It's bad for the brand, bad for the product, because people go, I had a macaron, it was disgusting.
Mm.
So I was working on learning how to make good macarons, and then it was up and down. Like I'd hit it one day I wouldn't, and I couldn't figure out what I
Oh,
was doing wrong. You know what I mean? To get these macarons like on the money. So I started searching, like asking. One of my teachers I had at TAFE was a French guy, and I asked him, "Do you have a good recipe that's kind of consistent? Because I'm having trouble. Some days they're like amazing, and then the other days they just crack and all these things." Because I didn't know enough about it at the time. I was only young, and like I said, no one was really. It's not part of our culture, and I wasn't really
yeah.
teaching it. So yeah, so it was the journey.
How exciting. I want to go back to your mindset because I'm very intrigued by this. You tried it, it would work, and then it wouldn't work. A lot of times when we try something, especially the frustration of, it's kind of like a seesaw. It works, it doesn't work, that you still kept on going. That to me
Oh
is
yeah,
so exciting. And then you went to your TAFE teacher, how can you help me? That is isn't that what makes like a brilliant person in general, as opposed to someone who's, maybe not going to thrive as much? It's that adding that little extra step, like how do I get better? Asking for external help. So did he give you a recipe? How, like what got you to the next level?
he gave me a recipe, but that wasn't my getting me to the next level. I did a course with a Belgian guy. He came out to Australia and did a few modern pastry courses. And in one of those courses, he did some macarons for more for decoration and stuff and so forth. But there's a couple of little tricks I learned in that class that then from then on I was on the journey. I was like, yep, I got this. Consistency, all those little things that you just don't know, because like if you're not doing them every day, or someone's not, like, you're not seeing it, you just don't. So like, yeah, that was that moment where I was like, yeah, that's it, I got it.
Cool.
And then it's just development from there, just working on it, practicing, getting it right. And then after that I was good. I could make macarons whenever I wanted, with a 95%, 95% result all the time, right? Because sometimes it's not the recipe. Sometimes it's just other things that come into play, whether it's humidity or the oven or playing it up. Other things happen over time sometimes, and it doesn't matter how many times you've made them. Sometimes they'll just stuff up, but most of the time on the money. So those little things, you just got to keep searching. It just depends how much you want to learn or want to get it or achieve it, or and that's what I say to anybody. It's there's always a way. You just got to find it.
Yeah, and you're a great leader in that field as well. But also, something I never thought about. 95%, maybe 99% success rate. You would think, without actually thinking, you just make the dish and it's done. But how frustrating is, maybe that 5% that doesn't work out? What's your like self-talk where you've put everything in it, and as you said, the humidity or maybe an ingredient's off? Does that annoy you? Is it still
Oh, of
frustrating?
course.
Yeah, okay,
I
tell
say
me.
it's the worst thing. Like, not one of the worst things.
Yeah.
It's just like when you make something and then it goes in. For example, you make something, it looks amazing on a tray, put it in the oven, and the next thing you know, like, they're all cracking open and like just stuff like that. Over time, you learn to deal with it, and then you'll find, if it's a business, for example, you'll find a way to use it. Whether you dry them out, blend them up, make them to a powder, and put them into the next batch. So so there's no
Yeah.
wastage. Or you put a filling in it and you coat them in chocolate. Like things like that. Whereas, yes, it's a mistake, and yes, you're pissed off at yourself, but you've just created into another product. It's not ideal, because then it is more work and more labor to make that next product,
Yeah.
but it's not going in the bin. Yeah, and that's the best thing. When something doesn't go in the bin and it's not like just getting dumped or wasted completely, then you still have a good feeling.
Is that ingrained in you? Wastage is like the number one priority. We don't want it, or is that just you as a person?
Oh, it's number one, man. Like, the worst thing in the kitchen is wastage.
Mm.
It's you cook something and then you're chopping off, a third of the tray just to make it square or neat. Like, you see it sometimes, and it's like,
Yeah.
why? Or if you have to do that because different texture, or whatever, like I just said, you put it back into something, or you make a filling with it, so that's something over time that you start developing and picking up on. And it's quite a big thing now because wastage and the cost of operating business in food is so high. So you don't want to throw anything out. So you're thinking, okay, well, if I'm going to cut the ends off that cake, what can I do with it? So you're always trying to find a way, whether you develop a different way to bake that cake where it doesn't have no wastage, or you bake them in individual rounds so you're not cutting and then all the bit in between you're cutting is wastage, or that those bits become a filling for a cake pop, or you do the drying out and the blending. Like, there's so many different ways to reuse and revitalize. It just really depends on how much someone cares about it too. Some people like, I couldn't be bothered.
Yeah,
it's time. We don't have the time, to do that. But if you've got a simple process and that excess is just put onto something and dried out or folded through the next thing, then it's not really that hard to do. So we always kind of looked at those kind of things to really help boost our processes and efficiencies, in the business when we had it. And that was definitely a big thing that we always looked at when we designed something, whether it's a cake or a macaron or so forth.
That's okay. There's so much there, and I can, as you said, a lot of people would just, maybe they're just an employee, just throw it out, because they don't realize the margins are so tough. We'll get into it, but it just blows my mind. And what's the balance there where, you're a very creative guy, you're trying new things, you're always wanting to grow and learn, but then you've got a business to run, or, maybe you're the head chef at 19. How, you've got things that you have to achieve. How on earth did you balance the creativity while also, just doing your day-to-days like that? I don't know how you did that.
It's very hard. I obviously wasn't very successful at it in the end, but it's hard. Like,
we'll agree to disagree. I think
it's a tough one, right? You're doing this, you're doing that. Like, anytime you're in business, you work 20 odd hours a day. It's just, you're from one thing to the next. And as you slowly build the team, you delegate out some of the jobs, and build that team over time. And, but yeah, there's always problems and always, different things, putting out fires and new cakes and going to work with the people, going to create something new. And in those moments where you're too stretched, then you'll get a cake that's existing and you'll just change the flavor profile. So it might have been a maple pecan and raspberry cake, and then you might flip it into macadamia pear and buttermilk. You know what I mean? But utilizing a similar recipe, just flipping it all, so it looks like it's completely new. But reality is behind it. For you, the work wasn't that much because you're just altering an existing. So sometimes it was in those moments where we were really stretched and time was poor and all those things. You do things like that, and then So, but yeah, it's definitely a hard one. And people ask me all the time. And I say, look, if you can, you have someone else running the business and you do the creative, because for me that's. You got to play to your strength in a sense. Not everyone falls into that luxury, because sometimes it's a small business. You're trying to grind it out to get it off the ground, and in that sense, you got to do whatever you have to do. But as you can, these days there's definitely a lot of software that can help you make it easier on your part, that your team can be a part of and help. With using apps and all these things that can connect. Back into your Zero system or whatever you use, MYOB, and sort of help make the process a little bit smoother, But they all cost as well, right? Monthly fees. It can all add up for a small business who's not turning much profit. So, yeah, there's definitely different ways. You just got to figure out what works for you.
We'll build up to this, but just while it springs to mind, I'm guilty of this, but I didn't realize how much goes into this business or businesses. And as you said, you want to work on your strengths, but then there's payroll, it's organizing food, and that even I only learned about this a few days ago with paying wages. There's 100 different rates depending on the person, the time. It's the only industry in Australia, and
it's just stupid. Sorry, yeah.
No. You tell me. My mind's blown. I'd rather hear it from you. About how
it's the dumbest system, honestly. Yeah. There'll be people oh yeah, but just go and learn it. I'm like, but when you're doing all these other things,
It's not
and
possible.
every second person's on a different level, a different rate, and then if they work past 6 o'clock, then on another
Different
all these
rate.
things come into play, and then everyone wants you to be Superman and get everything right every time. The government should make the system easier to help businesses be more successful and be better and longer lasting in what they do. They just make a mozza of it. They make everything hard for everybody. It's not a simple system. I don't know whether it's a job justification thing where they all got to just, change everything all the time because
I would
otherwise
imagine.
my job would become non-existent because, so, I mean, I'm not in that side of it. I don't really, I just close my eyes when I vote and pick a box. So
They're all the same.
they're all the same. Doesn't matter who you pick. He's going to tell you, oh, we're going to change all this and this and this and this and this and this.
And
the next one,
no one does it.
He drops, they do two things and then the rest of it's, yeah.
We
And the
promised
next guy comes in
800 things, but we did that. Yeah.
like the last guy, he put his foot in it a couple of times and he was gone. He got smashed.
Yeah.
So at the start he was climbing, and then a couple of wrong moves and he was just out. So it's just all the same. But yeah, I mean, someone needs to do something about that. I think definitely for small businesses and food business as such. They really need to make the system simpler for them to have these amazing chefs and food operators and places be able to stick around and last.
I was speaking to a lady, and I'll shout her out because she's got an amazing cafe, Katie at Major Mitchell, and I've spoken to other people along the way. And they have all the systems in place. And as you said, it's super expensive, but they're not 100% reliable. And if you've got, 5, 10, 15, 20, it doesn't matter what size it is, there's always going to be some mistakes. And no one on the planet, it also goes back to what you were saying where, there's some practical people, then some doers. And it feels like, based on the limited knowledge, that when they implement all these rules, it's just like, it sounds good on paper, but without actually realizing that it's not actually attainable to get it 100% right all the time. There's just so much that goes into it, and it just makes it really hard. But yeah, I could only imagine the stress that comes with, that's just one element. We've spoken about other elements. And then, you're a creative guy wanting to work on your creativity, running all this other stuff, trying to keep in mind. I know it's hard. I admire you for being able to.
And a lot of those systems, if something goes wrong, they take no responsibility. Even like some of these new ones will have rates, like pay rates in it, and it sort of will help you when you put someone new in, help you guide you to the right. And look at that, that's definitely a good small step in the right direction to give people a little bit more insight. But I think it really needs to be a system that comes from the government. Whether you have to pay a month or whatever, or it's free, that connects to your accounting software, that lets you get it. You know what I mean? Because then there's no excuses. Then there's no like, we can come and help you. And then I still remember back when I had the business, and there's a company called something, I can't remember what they're called, but they help with that stuff, employment, getting the rates, the people, and the right thing with this and there was a constant argument with the government body, who's right, who's wrong, and they're all fighting each other, trying to tell each other what it is. It was just, I was like, but who am I supposed to believe? Like, who do I pay this fee to? Because, one's telling you one thing, one's telling you another. And in the end, I mean, the government body should be the one that's right, but these other people who own I don't know, I can't remember what they're called. It's like they're like advisors or whatever in that industry. But, and I was just like, this is just bullcrap,
I agree. I've never heard government and efficiency in the same sentence, but hopefully it inspires someone, because it's a disaster. But I want to build up to this because you've mentioned the previous business a few times, but I want to go back to the timeline because you've got a really awesome story. So you're the head chef at 19. I think you then join another business because you wanted to work for someone that you admired, and then
I wanted to get a bit of restaurant experience.
Yep.
No, where did I go after? No, after that job. No, I went. Oh yes, I did. I went to Cairns. Well, you're right. I moved to Cairns because I wanted to work with a guy called Paul Kennedy, who's was an amazing pastry, or still is. Sorry, not was. He's an amazing pastry chef, and at the time, he was working up there, and I applied for a job up there, and then got up there and found out he was one of the guys that was leaving. So I hung around there for about a year, and then back to Sydney.
Are you so this is when you start your business. So one, I've got a few points here. You go there because you want to learn from this guy, then he leaves. Was that heartbreaking at the time, or you're like, that's
it was nature? Yeah, like I was, I worked with him for about a month. I think it was only his last month, and then I was just and then he was moving to Melbourne to go and head up a school, like a pastry school and stuff. So I got it. He wanted a little bit of change in lifestyle and whatnot. And so I thought, anyway, I'm up here. And then the hierarchy in hotels kind of just got me after a while. I was like, I'll stick it out here. Maybe I can, it's a nice place to live, Cairns, for a bit. So I was like, oh yeah, it's cool. Except for like the jellyfish and stuff and the alligator. You can't even go to the beach. That was the hardest thing. But I'm not much of a swimmer. Yeah, because the beaches are full of jellyfish for one part of the year, and then if not, then you're just worrying about where the crocodiles are going to come out of the trees.
Australian thing.
Signs on the beach, watch out for crocodiles. And it's like, you lay in there and it's like, oh, gets to you after a while. Like, you're laying there for, I'm going home.
Sorry. I think it's important to talk about the hierarchy because I think you had this a few times in your life. I think you were fed up. There was another opportunity and they didn't give it to you and you felt you were right for the role, also given experience level, and they then recruited outside. So you kind of went, fuck it, I'm going to start my own business. Was it through that experience that gave you?
Pretty much, yeah. That was it, man. I was chef de party at this hotel. I had a head chef was there, and there was a senior chef de party. That was the ranking, and there was people. I mean, there was other chefs under me, but and then the senior chef de party got fired. He did something, I can't remember what it was. And he got sacked, and then they were like, oh, we're going to replace him. And then I'd been working like hard, doing all like different creative stuff for the cafe and all these kind of things. And I literally didn't get the job because I hadn't worked in a hotel for over 10 years, and it was not because of anything to do with, they didn't hire on like how good you were or your skill was or creativeness. It was just like literally they put this other old guy in the job who everything was just brownies and meringues. Every function that came on, he'd just, oh yeah, we'll do brownies and meringues. I'm just like,
just so old school.
Yeah, just boring and old school, and didn't want to really try. Plus, he didn't have the skill to do something, or if he did, he didn't show it or didn't want to use it. And so after that, like, I know I was still young. I was very young. I was like, stuff this. I'm not going to stay here because I'm not going anywhere. If I got him above me, it's like a brick wall. I'm not going to be able to, like I can't do anything because I'm having to listen to him and the head chef. But the head chef will delegate to him most of the stuff, right? The head chef will be working in paperwork and functions and events coming up, and maybe like thinking about like what are we going to do here and there and so forth. So the day-to-day grind will be run by this guy. So I just decided to cruise back to Sydney. Yeah, I came back to Sydney and at that time and started working from home. Supplying a local cafe. And then I ended up doing some markets, and that's kind of where I started. And started building that sort of interest from people outside there asking like, oh, where's your shop? I didn't have a shop, but I was just like, no, I don't have one. I'm just doing this for the moment.
I like how you just like breathe through it. That's pretty, how do you see that experience when because you've got this, you want to learn and grow, and then you see someone where you're not going to be able to learn and grow. And if anything, it's going to not only halt your career, but maybe also potentially your aspirations and your creativity. It's pretty courageous to then say, I'm not going to go to work for someone else. I'm going to work for myself. Did you have that aspirations? Were you thinking about it before? Like, it's a pretty big, courageous leap of faith, I think. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, look, I've always had I've traveled to France and a few times by that time, and I've been to Europe and I've seen like a lot of the pastry scene, and Australia didn't have any of that, in the sense of what you'd see, that sort of jewelry style case and cakes lined up in a row, and in my previous job, the same thing. Like you could do so much, there was so much freedom, but then there was that bit missing where you couldn't design the store and put everything how you wanted it and how you thought it would sell better anyway. So those things like you just don't get because it's not your own business. So I knew that if I wanted to do something like that, which was definitely part of my dream, I would have to do it myself. But I went away for a bit to Cairns just to break out of Sydney, clear my mind. If it was a successful job, then I would have kept chasing and pushing. But like I said, hit a wall, and then I came home, and I was just it was trying to do something. Like I couldn't sit around, and I think it was more when I came back, I didn't have anything. I couldn't find anything that I really wanted to commit to, in the sense of I knew kind of some of the jobs that were out there, and I was like, nah, I wouldn't last there. It's not for me. And
That's
then
smart.
just over time, start talking to the place we got the local coffee. Yeah, I'll make you a few things, just simple stuff, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And that's how I kind of like just getting into it. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, I need something more as well, like, because just doing a few things to the cafes, I've already started doing this stuff from home. I needed to do something a little bit extra. So I went to the entertainment quarter market, or Fox Market, this is called, in the entertainment quarter there in Sydney, in Moore Park. And I got a little stall. And I actually found, after a few stalls, there was a bread company that didn't want to stay there and sell. So they said, can you sell our bread? We'll give you, we'll pay you to do it.
Yep.
And you can have your cakes on the end. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. I'm here anyway. So
That's a dream.
I'll sell your bread, get a little bit of pay, and then sell my own stuff, and keep the takings as well. So like, it was good for me at that stage. Helped me, and then helped me as well as being next to that. There was a good brand of bread. So Sonoma, which is a pretty prominent brand in Sydney for sourdough bread at the time, and it being next to them, it just helped. The quality customers that were coming there would see, oh yeah, what's this? Grab something sweet. I mean, I was only doing tarts and brownies and muffins and nothing like out of this world. It was still nice. It was nice, but it wasn't like crazy. And then I started doing some pastries, and building it up. So it got to pretty busy. It was only twice a week, Wednesday and Saturday we were doing the markets. And so it got into a pretty decent schedule, especially working from home. But yeah, did it. And that was kind of the starting step, because people ask me, where's your shop? You got to get a shop. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Started to make the brain tick, and then friends around me were like, yeah, you should be in a shop. Like, you got to do a shop. And then, found a shop, and he said, if you don't take it, I'll take it. And I was like, okay. So, yeah. That was kind of like the starting point. So, and then subleased the kitchen to start with. So I didn't have, to get like a full-on kitchen by myself. And then,
so how does that work? You get it for some days, and then someone else gets it for another day, or you share it with someone?
No, they just had it through the night. They used it in the late afternoon and early evening. They just all they did was make steamed muffins. Okay. So, and then once they were gone, I used it for the rest of the time. And they lasted probably about 8 or 10 months, maybe 10 months, and then they went bust. And then I took over the whole kitchen, because I was at that stage then getting to a point where I kind of needed to. That's
pretty quick.
Needed the whole space. It wasn't crazy busy, but it was busy enough, and I needed the space. And plus, when you share, you can't really control how clean they are as well. So you always cleaning up. The place was a bit of a mess and stuff, so we just had to clean it up. Which was good to get the whole place, because then we cleaned it right up. We really. Scrubbed it back and put some new gear in it, and made it to what we needed at the time.
It's so interesting, because I feel like that was a pivotal moment where you say, I'm not going to take any other job. And obviously there's life stresses, there's money, and you see some other jobs and you're thinking it's not quite for you, but to still have that courage to go, you know what, I'm just going to, potentially, you're not starting again, but you're starting by yourself. Not many people would do that, because the real world stresses come in. Did you what was going on? Or you're like, I just have to do this? What was the thing? I
just had to do it, and then I think I was at that point where I was like, I didn't really want to go and work for anyone. And then I had people in my ear pushing me in the, good pushing, and I was like, okay, let's do it. The rent, I think the rent on my first store was $400 a week. So it was, it's only 28 square meters, but it worked well, right? Balmain, which is, high-end place. I know there's a place I work for down the road across the thing. They're paying $3,500 a week. Which a much bigger store, but still, that's a lot. That's a lot of difference in the weekly rent. So I went, well, I'll rent this. It's a good rent, and then I sublease the kitchen. obviously the kitchen's part of the rent in the total costings, but still was pretty low. I think I was only paying at the start when I was subleasing maybe $400 or $500 a week in the kitchen as well. So it's still under $1,000 to run an operation, which it's a good start. It's a good way to start. You don't really want a big overhead to start, which these days it's hard to not if you want to get a little bit of space to have a decent kitchen.
Yeah.
So it was a good start in that sense. Fitted it out with a friend at the time, so we didn't get no like crazy big fit out like we probably did in some other places along the way. But yeah, it was a good simple fit out to start, and built it up. Like it was kind of a good thing. Like you wouldn't want to be super busy from the start, but it was locals, and then it took about 12 months to get it right up. Had a lot of locals who were really supportive, and they were writing to all these food magazines and the Sydney Morning Herald.
They were doing it
they were complaining because they kept reading about other places that weren't as good, they were saying. And then, I had nothing to do with it. I was busy cooking, but I would run into them all the time, and they were like, "Oh man, I'm upset that, they haven't included you," and all these things. I said, I don't do it for that, but it would have been nice to get a little bit of publicity just to help the business, to get some other people, some other eyes on the business who aren't in Balmain in the inner west area. So it took about 12 months, then we got a good write up, and then, it sort of started from there then, like one write up started with the next, and then got an opportunity on MasterChef, not long after probably towards the end of the second year maybe. So it was, it was a steady flow, then it kind of just went bang.
Okay, I've got so many cool. I'm glad that you did that, because that's an inspiration to many where they've got, dreams, aspirations, and then, push comes to shove, it can be very hard, but you actually did it, and the rewards are, they're amazing. So you do this, I think you're working crazy hours, maybe 20-hour days sometimes.
I was sleeping in the car some nights. Like I'd just go out to the car and sleep, because I was doing all the products throughout the night to get to the shop, and then I'd drive them down to the shop. It was real grinded out, like bootstrapping, like it was like,
don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't, when I look back now, I'm like, I don't know how I did. I mean, I can still work a 16-hour day, but those were like insane. Like you're non-stop, like full on, running to this, take that down there, go and get this, go back, order this. It was just full on. But I enjoyed it. It was awesome. It's part of the journey and part of the experience, and it's what you kind of needed to do to get a start.
As I said it, I'm going to say it again, very unique. And I've got many quotes of yours, but one of them is, cooking is a lifestyle. You live it, and you literally live it. You have embraced it in all areas of your life. That's crazy. And with how important was MasterChef? Because MasterChef's all around the world. We've got a lot of listeners from outside of Australia. Everyone knows what MasterChef is. You were there for season 1. I think you're also on one of the most iconic episodes ever. Did that massively boost your profile? What was happening when you got that call from MasterChef?
Look, MasterChef, an amazing experience. It made my profile, to be honest, away from, doing what you do yourself. That just sort of gave the opportunity to be national, just people nationally see you, what you do, what your business, and then international as time went on. Obviously, the show was broadcast all over the world. I think 100 and something countries. So,
I didn't realize. Wow,
that's a lot of countries. Yeah, MasterChef Australia is in a lot of countries. Oh, I don't know if still now, but back in the heyday when that was
the most popular season, I would imagine, and probably the most popular
everywhere.
Show in Australia as well.
I'd be in countries in the other side of the world, and someone would yell out my name. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Then you turn around and they're like, yeah, I love the croquembouche. It's just weird stuff. They're things I remember, from the journey and from moments in time. But great thing done. It created my profile. From that, you just have to be able to keep going and keep giving more and more to be able to feed the machine. If I say, keep creating, making great experiences, and getting those opportunities, which it gave me for many years. I did MasterChef last year, so it's one of those things I always have a lot of respect for, and for what it allowed me to do, and and what it did to the business at the time.
Isn't it? You've also been on plenty of other shows, which we've mentioned on the episode notes. But did you ever think that you would be on TV when you were first starting out? Because it's like it goes kind of against what you were starting out to be. TV's not kind of there. Like maybe you thought I could do a spot or a segment, but when you're first starting out, you probably didn't think I'm going to be on TV. I would assume.
Nah, never. I didn't do it for the I wasn't ever thinking about TV when I opened a shop. Like it was literally for me and a place to be able to express what I wanted to make and do and have it look how I wanted to look. That was my goal and my sort of driving,
Nice.
my driving words in my head. I was like, yep, that's all. And then that come along, and at first it was only just like, oh, can you help us out? Can you make one for us and drop us off at the studio? And then, as time progressed before that episode came to get filmed, they told me to bring my chef whites with me, and then when I got there, they made me carry it out, and that's where that episode, that that iconic episode, happened, and from that, different experiences with that show, became possible. So,
Wow.
it's one of those things you don't, and still to this day, I don't wake up and want to do TV. It's not my goal. It's not my, I prefer like coming up with ideas and cooking and thinking about other, things, how they work. And, TV's a bonus. I always say it's a bonus. If it's there and
nice.
you get it,
Yeah.
it's like a bonus. It's something that, you go on and, it gives you some great visibility, and you're able to connect with great people and people who are, also pushing themselves to try and, win, whether it's a competition or get a bit of a name or become, learn more. There's so many people in there with so many different directions. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's also like crazy. I imagine, you've had, I think, like a doco on SBS. I forget all the names, but like Dessert Masters or Sugar Rush, all these different shows.
Yeah.
Do people just call you up and be like, hey, what show do you want to do now? Or just opportunities just come and you say yes?
Yeah, they just came. Yeah, and you just say yes if you think it suits and fits. You just say yes. But I mean, they're very rare, the opportunities, especially these days.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why I say it's a bonus to be able to have done those shows. It's been awesome. So I can't, because there's a lot of amazing, great pastry chefs out there, and you just got that. That's why you call it. You're just in the right person's mouth at the right time. So you just kind of take those opportunities. And it helps.
Yeah, and I would imagine, is that when being on the TV shows, did that give you the confidence to then start more businesses? Is that what led to the big growth?
Yeah, I waited a while. Like I didn't jump straight on it. There were people trying to get me in places at the time, and then I went, yeah, well, I think we need to, have a presence closer to the, near the city. That's why I think the second store was a chocolate cafe. That we opened up the street. So I opened a chocolate cafe as a second business. So it was just sold chocolates, and it did breakfast and lunch. So it was a little bit of a different concept. Great. It always, pretty much on the weekends and late in the week it was always packed. It's only small. It was a very weird shaped place at the back of an arcade, and after 2 years it's not very functional. In the sense of it needs so many people to operate it. So we just we closed it.
Yep.
And then we moved what was that down to Roselle, but it wasn't the same concept. We just moved that second store down to Roselle where our main kitchen was. And we had a store outside the main kitchen that did coffees and hot chocolates and all those kind of things, because we didn't have that in our Balmain store because it's too small. So, and you could come and see everyone working. It had a glass window. You could see people in the kitchen. Yeah, you could see people in the kitchen. People used to love just to sit there and eat something and have a drink and then keep going. So that was good. And then a few stores came after that. Definitely, that was kind of like, well, we've got this bigger kitchen, and I think we need to look at other places when they pop up. And I guess it's one of those things when you don't have that experience, when people start throwing stores at you. It sounds great, right? But then there's always ups and downs about it, we'll give you this much money to fit it out. And then, they'll always get that money back in the rent.
Yeah.
which you don't. I mean, you learn along the way, but you don't know
Yeah,
that
the
straight away.
small. Yep.
You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like, it doesn't say that in anything, but
No.
that's how they develop that offer. So, and then that's when the stores start opening and closing, because it's just like, well, in 5 years you're paying exorbitant rent because it's gone up so much.
And
You
then
know,
plus
so
all the other stuff we've spoken about, and I've spoken to so many people, and I think you've even brought this up on other podcasts. There's a lot of inverted commas celebrity chefs, and the restaurants are also going under as well. I could only imagine, and you mentioned that you had quite a few. I wrote down the word, but I may have misspoke. But you mentioned that you weren't that successful in the end, and I'll agree to disagree. I think you grew amazing stuff. Do you see it as a not a success?
oh, look, it was a success. 12 years, like as what it was a success. But in the
Yeah.
end, like for me as a person, I failed. I failed myself. I failed the journey in the end. So that's how I feel to myself, and like, I guess it's different for everybody. But like it is what it is. But that's how I walked out of it. I just felt like a few mistakes. I made the mistakes. In decision making, and it goes a long way back before that. It's probably from the start. The structure and the fundamentals and the platform wasn't right from the start, and as it grew, it probably didn't grow with the right, all those things key in place. So they're always a little bit fragmented, not completely. I mean, the business still operated and ran, and it wasn't really till the end there till it broke apart. But I think along the way, I probably could have set it up better if I had someone with more of a business acumen that, from the start to help do all that, you know what I mean? So, it's little things, but they're all ifs and maybes and whats and whatever, but, in your head, that's kind of where you're at. But look, 12 years, the things that we kind of achieved and did as a business is, it's great. But yeah, it's like anything when you kind of have to go out like that. It's just I don't know. It always feels like, but look, failure's how we learn and we progress and we learn not to do that again. And you take a lot away from it. So
Nice. Yeah.
I don't take it as a negative. You know what I mean? Like I never wanted to be there. I would love to still have that setup that I had, like I had a big central kitchen, I had stores Sydney and Melbourne, you know what I mean? Like it's not like I wanted to throw it away, but in the end, like I pushed as hard as I could. I looked at every avenue. I looked at people who would come in and take over and all these different things. And, in the end, I was always lost out, like, oh, we'll give you 1%, or, you know what I mean? Like all these things,
Yeah.
I still had to work in the bit. Like there's so much, but in the end, they're not going to pay off the debt that you owe. They're only going to pay for your business to take into the next step. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't know. It's like, well, I'm still going to have that. Then people are still going to hate me that I lost my business, with all the whatever outstanding creditors that there was.
Everyone. Yeah.
You can't please everyone. I said, I'm going to cut the rope, you know what I mean? Because nothing's really, I'm going to be stuck in this whole unhappy for, the rest of my career because I'm stuck. There was no, and even like, there's an opportunity to buy back your stores, I wouldn't have had a kitchen. So then I would have had to find someone to get a kitchen, and then
all these
things, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause a few of the stores were cracking stores, right? It's just some of the other ones that let everything down. So, it's one of those things, and then you just got to go, it's too messy. It's too messy, and I think it would have went down anyway. COVID came a year and a half later. It would, like, trying to hold that in COVID would have been absolute nightmare. So, that's just kind of what happened, and it's unfortunate, but you got to keep moving and take it as something that's sort of that sort of developed you and made you into something that that who you are today, because you take all those learnings.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just stop you there. That's brilliant. Most stressful thing, we won't have time to go into how stressful it is, but I know so many people that have been, declared bankruptcy or, things didn't go to their way. And a lot of people don't get out of it mentally, but your reflections are amazing. Also, the accountability is really, powerful to look back. And I think it was a huge success. I'll just go back to what you said. Huge success, what you did also for the Australian, community, or if you want to call it that, remarkable. And I think that it's, obviously it didn't work out to what you want, to where you wanted to go. But are you able to look back and go, I learned this, I did this, I applied this, these were some of the positives, these were the strengths? Because you mentioned that you saw it as a failure in your journey at the end, which I disagree, but it's your life. I can't convince you otherwise. How do you kind of put that bit into perspective?
Oh, look, yeah, as a career thing, as a personal achievement thing, it's definitely a lot of success there. I say achievements, a lot of achievements. Because achievements for something you do in the moment, and you build those achievements. Success for me is something that kind of rolls on and it brings that sort of something. I don't know what the word is. I still feel like I haven't become. That's just me though. Other people, there's many people like you that say, no, you were, But for myself, I think I always look at it in a different perspective. But I think you learn. Like being in and out of those holes and all those things, so many people love you, hate you, try and take advantage of you, all these different things in those moments. And, it's how and trying to weave your way through it all and so forth. It teaches you a lot. Any hospo business, the minute that it's not you got to cut the rope, I think that for me moving forward, if you ever get to a point where you can see like it's getting like tight and it's been like that for a bit, you got to get out of it. That's what I say, because you can always start again. But once you dig yourself too deep and things get like, you're only upsetting other people. Yep. You're only like hurting other people. It's something that, you don't really see when you're so far in it and living it. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's foggy. You're creating, you're traveling, your business, you're dealing with the office, there's kitchen staff, all these things, there's problems, there's there's people calling you, like it's foggy. It's just like you don't want to get in that position. So you got to make a smart choice and be honest with yourself and say, no, my business isn't working, or whatnot. My business was working, but I had cracks. There was obviously cracks, right? That took those good stores out, and because we had bought the kitchen building, there was just too much overheads and too much outlay that had to be every month kept up to the bank. It was crazy. So, it's one of those things where you just don't want to get in that position. One thing I take away from that first one too is just don't borrow money. Like borrowing money is like, at the time you're like, oh yeah, and your business is going great. It's like, oh yeah. But the minute something changes, like it just spearheads the other way. So it's like, I'm not saying don't borrow nothing, but minimal. That's what I would say if you're going into a hospitality business. I see people now like, oh yeah, no, I'm just going to extend my loan and I'm going to extend this. I'm like, dude, can't keep doing that. It's not going to work in the end because the margins are so tight. People are probably only doing 3 to 8%, maximum if they've got a good business in hospitality. Yeah. At the moment, that's not a lot, right? If you've got all the overheads, and then if you got a loan on top of that.
That's crazy. I want to say I appreciate your learnings. I think that's great. And as we said, extremely tough business. We're seeing so many businesses struggle or, cease to exist. Last question on that before we do a rapid fire segment. The mental turmoils that you would have gone through, how did you, forget about the business, what just helped you kind of stay afloat with it? Were you doing any exercises, breathing, talking to people? Because that's a stress that you can't really convey. And, we just spoke about a small summary, but mentally it'd be tough to say the least. What helped you?
Yeah, mental has been tough. Mentally it's been tough. You got to keep smiling as much as you can, but reality inside, deep down, even, sometimes you don't want to go places, and a lot of the time you don't want to go places. And,
I'd imagine.
You sort of, but you got to try and do exercise and stuff like that. I haven't been super regular, but I do it when I can, and just do things that sort of make you happy. You know what I mean? Like whatever that is. It might be cooking, maybe just cooking at home, things like that. And that's for me. That's why I kind of went back to. And I said to myself, I put everything in to the end, and I knew that, and I'm the only one that needs to know that to myself, because like if you get in that position and just go, oh, I'm going to run. I know people that have run to another country because they can't handle that that the business has gone into like administration and liquidation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, ego, shame, all of that.
Yeah, so they just bail. So I just I didn't want to do that. That's the last thing I wanted to do. I pushed it to the end. We traded 6 months in administration or whatever, trying to find solutions and all those kind of things. And we really looked at everything. We just couldn't find that solution that was going to be the best. So, but it's one of those things where you got to really focus on your own mental health, and a lot of people won't see that, even people who have been let down throughout the process and whatnot, whether it's, staff or credit, they don't really care about your mental health. They don't, yes, you've let them down, but it's not about that. You know what I mean? It's like, in the end, everybody loses, everybody takes away from it, something, whether to put a better process in place for their company or all these different things, so, I mean, it's one of those things, but yeah, mental is number one, because that's the hardest thing to battle.
I agree.
And no one likes to talk about it, because it's like, you don't want to look like, oh yeah, I'm suffering, I'm this, I'm that, so I never really talk about it much, but, my wife's been great. My family's been great. Nice. Some real close friends, even companies that I dealt with, through thick and thin, they've been very supportive. And that kind of gives you a little bit of, presence in a sense to yourself, it helps you go. And over time, everything takes time. Yep. Slowly every year, you get a little bit better. But that's even still, I did a trade show on the weekend, sometimes I don't like walking past certain stands because, I feel like I let them down. Who knows, there might be nothing there, but I felt like and I just kind of just don't, sometimes I just don't have the, to walk up to it or whatever. Some I do if I know them well enough, but it's one of those things. You're still working on it, and you just got to keep going. In some way, I think what I said to myself in the time is even if I move a millimeter a day, you know what I mean? In some way, whether I learn something, whether I make a progress in some way towards something, that's good enough. It's better than sitting there, falling into a hole, moping and going backwards. And then just, you see it a lot, because it's a hard thing to take in, right?
Yeah.
It's something you worked all your life for, to build. It's your baby. You've driven, you've put everything into everything you earn. You've been reinvesting to grow this business, because you have no investors, right? Yep. It's just, you're naturally building this. Yeah. So it's a lot when people lose all that stuff. It's a lot. So I always, for me, is more about saying I've got to move 1 millimeter a day at least, and whichever way that is, and whatever I do, it's something moving forward, researching, learning something, making a video, it doesn't matter, so yeah, that was my key.
That is so important, because with life in general, first of all, thank you for your honesty. I know that would have been extremely hard, as we've discussed, and I think it's really important to talk about the mental hurdles, because it's so prevalent, and we all can have challenges at times, and giving tools and people to realize that's the most important thing we have, is to look after ourselves, no matter how stressful a situation. But also with the moving just a little bit forward, just doing a little bit of a step every day, that builds a resilience in yourself as well. So I appreciate you saying that, because it wouldn't be easy to do. And, huge credit to you. I reckon what we'll do to wrap up the podcast is to do a quick rapid fire segment. What's your go-to ice cream flavor?
Chocolate.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
No.
Great. I won't comment, but I needed to hear that one. What's the one dish you just could never master?
Nougat.
What's the most overrated dessert out there?
Anything that's oversized, like freak shakes and freak everything and giant brownie stacked on top of all that kind of crap.
When someone makes you something and it's terrible, how do you deal with that situation?
Just don't eat it.
Are you okay with saying it wasn't good, or you just go, that
Yeah,
was
like if
lovely?
it's not good, like you just gotta, if it's okay, then you kind of just, you wing through it and you just eat it, and it's like, yeah, that's good. But like if it's terrible, like you just can't eat it half the time. Like it's just not worth the calories, not worth the, like just the aftermath, even like having to try and go and like clean your mouth or.
Uh, what has helped you thrive on TV, like with nerves or anxiety? Has there experience anything that's helped you?
I think like music definitely helps a lot. Being enclosed in a set of headphones a lot of times. So like if I'm a bit anxious or whatnot, I'll put that in. It really helps me stop the multiple thinkings, and I just really get the one source of thinking. I don't know. My brain feels enclosed. I don't know what it is. Some weird thing but it helps me a lot. I really like to do that. And just I'll just do something that I enjoy. Chocolate, I'll eat chocolate or custard. Sometimes I have in the past. Definitely on MasterChef, I used to knock back a little bit of 600 ml custard, which made me feel good, nice and relaxed. You got to just have things that make you chill. Like I think if you stand there or sit there and let it all kick in, then it's and just overtakes you.
With the headphones, I've noticed a lot of swimmers do that as well when they're going up for a race. So there was obviously something there. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? At the moment, probably my son.
Nice.
But yeah, in Korea, like I think just the opportunities to meet so many amazing people and be able to like help them or inspire them. I think that's probably been for me the best thing. To see somebody else that gets something from what you do there's no better feeling, whether they're eating it or whether they're learning or whether they're just an inspiration that they want to be that in their future. I think there's nothing probably more proud than doing something like that, I think so.
Yeah, and you've left a legacy. You've inspired so many people. How do you want to be remembered?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I've never really thought of it, to be honest.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe on a block of chocolate.
Oh yeah, well you did Tim Tams. Maybe we can get you on like another.
No, I don't know. If I can help anybody in their way, like from what I've done over time, and they can gain from it, then yeah, it's great. I think that's a good enough for me. You know what I mean? I'll be happy in any way. To be honest, I've never really thought about it. That's a hard one.
Yeah. Next big dream or goal? What's next for you?
Trying to figure it out. Maybe I might get into some kid stuff.
Oh, can you expand, or we'll have to see?
I have to see. Like I'm still like trying to work it out. But yeah, I don't know. I might get into I don't know. I'm trying to think of still to do with desserts, obviously, but just something a little bit different. I don't know. Maybe I end up back into like doing straight up stuff like I used to do. But I think just looking at a different way to take a different path in something, because as we spoke about before, the retail side is
tough.
It's tough, and like I've been there, I know how tough, and put yourself back in it. So is there a different way? I'm trying to figure it out. Like I'm trying to look at different ways to still use my skill set and be able to and still be able to be creative or create a vision and achieve it. So
well, you're one of the most creative people I've ever met. I'm pretty confident you'll find a way. Any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Yeah, just believe it. Everyone will tell you believe in yourself, but just do it. There's nothing wrong with failure, stuffing it up. That's all part of the process. Life's like a recipe. You make it, you might miss something here, you might miss something there. But the more times that you make it, the better you get at it. And I think that's with anything you do. Cooking, life, whatever, that's what it's about. You just got to keep looking at what went wrong, how I can achieve it, whether it's learning the knowledge behind it or whether it's being more observant in the process. they're all key factors into giving yourself that more of that confidence to be able to achieve what you're trying to do. So, I think if you get into food, put yourself out there, have an open mind, put yourself on the edge all the time. If, recipe wise, if it's business.
I know you've cut out. If it's a the last two sentences, you said whether it's a business, and then you cut out.
Yeah, if it's a business, then make sure it's a calculated risk. Do your research, get your data. All those little bits will help you along the way. And then it's more about every day, because the data is only one part of it, and it'll be the data that you develop over time that will give you that help in finding that pathway to leading a better journey.
Well said. And before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you, what's the one question I should have asked you?
What's that?
What's the one question I should have asked you?
What's the one question you should have asked me?
Yeah.
Oh, you covered a lot, man. I feel like I told you everything.
I don't know if you can see. I've been jotting like mad, trying to. I've been so much gold.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You covered a lot, so and I don't really do a lot of other than a lot. I'm a bit of live in my own sort of head. So yeah, I don't know what you could have asked me.
Nothing springs to mind. It's all good. I'm happy that we got to do this.
Yeah, cool.
And before we go, how can people follow you, keep up to date with you, and check out your stuff?
My Adriano Zumbo on Facebook or Instagram. Sweetest Assassin on Instagram is the handle. But yeah, if you type in Adriano Zumbo, it'll come up, and you'll see that one of the blue tick is the one.
Cool.
And that's pretty much it. I've got a website, but it's a bit not been. Hopefully, in the next 6 months, I'm going to add more to it and get back on it. So I think that'll be one of my things about getting a little bit more content up again. Get back into those sort of things. So that'll be part of my goal in the next 6 months is to get up there and share more recipes and tips with everybody out there. So
I look forward to that, and all of that will be in the episode notes, including the website, because people come to podcasts, they might re-listen, they might come back in 6 months, who knows, but all of that's in the episode notes. Thank you so much. You're inspiring. I love your forward-moving mindset. You're very honest and reflective. They're great tools for a great chat. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.
I appreciate Adriano's honesty and reflections, especially when he discusses the mental hardship of losing his businesses. Like us all, we've all had moments where it can be challenging to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Adriano breaks it down and explains that even if we move 1 millimeter a day, that's one step forward and creates a better positive result for us in the long term. This links perfectly to the old saying or idiom, one step at a time, where it can be of value to focus on what's right in front of you now, no matter how small the step we take is. By doing so, we can avoid overwhelm, celebrate the progress, build momentum, and get out of our own way. He gives great examples of what one can do during these times, such as something super simple like researching, creating or watching an important video, getting out of the house, exercise. The more we do these micro steps, the quicker and easier it becomes to build back up and hopefully better and stronger than before. As Adriano says, there is always a way, you just have to find it. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. One step at a time. Baby steps are still steps. Crawl if you must, but keep moving forward. You'll never be defeated as long as you keep moving. Tony Sorensen. Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.